Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Let's first recap the process that we went through to get to this point. The first major step was to develop those guiding principles, because that was supposed to inform the curriculum framework that we plan to develop. So the first step, we looked at it this morning, what are the guiding principles that should inform the curriculum? Then the next step was to look at the different approaches, the different models that are out there, and decide on one particular model. We can't adopt all the three models, we have to decide on one model. And as you heard, we decided in Milton Keynes on the integrated approach, but at that time we thought we might not be able to integrate everything under one organizing structure, so we left open the idea that if need be, we'll supplement it with more detailed look at certain themes or certain subjects. Then the next step was to try and provide a rationale for the integrated approach that was used. And Maulana did that this morning, gave you the rationale. His own evolution, as it were. Like President Obama says, he goes through an evolution. So did Maulana go through an evolution, right? He went through an evolution before he became committed, fully agreeable to the approach that had been recommended. So we looked at the rationale that Maulana provided this morning, the benefits of this integrated approach. Then, as I said this morning, it's not just enough to have a conceptual, an integrated approach. The problem becomes, how do you integrate all these different elements into one approach which is holistic, doesn't compartmentalize, integrates all the different themes. That's the idea of the conceptual framework. And the basis of that framework is that ayat that Maulana again explained, the ayat of Bir. So now we are at the point where we have got the conceptual framework. The next big challenge is, how do you teach this framework? You can't teach it all at once, so you have to divide it into what we call modules. And we came up with these 8 modules and tried to organize them in some kind of a logical, systematic fashion. And the point that I want to make, which I don't think has been made yet, is that all these 8 modules will be taught to students every year, right? All the 8 modules will be covered every year, and then across all the age groups. So they'll learn it, the first age group, when they go on to the second age group, all the 8 modules will be taught. So it's not like they'll be taught a couple and then they'll have to wait before they're taught some more. So all of them, so the whole thing will be integrated all along. Okay, we had a brief description of the 8 modules, right? Let me go back to that slide. Yeah, I have it here. Sorry. We had a brief description of these 8 modules. As we said, we start with the origin and we end with the return, right? So the very first module focuses on the Creator Himself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all His creation. You know, the jinn, the angels, the jinn, the human beings, all the other creatures that He has created. So that's the first module. Then the second module is the divine guidance, that Allah did not just create these creatures, human beings, and just let them fend for themselves. He provided guidance so that He can help them achieve perfection in this world and salvation in the next world. So the guidance comes through the prophets that He sent, and here is where we talked about all the previous prophets before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all the previous scriptures that they came with. And then we focus on self-improvement. This is at the individual level, right? Like Sheikh Safdar explained, this is at the individual level. First, we have to develop our own relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's like concentric circles. You begin with yourself and then you move out. You know, you move out to your immediate family, you move out to your community, eventually you move out to the larger society. So it starts with self-purification at the individual level. And then we have these modules that talk about the process that our own Prophet went through to communicate the message, to help guide us. So that's the fourth module that the Prophet went through to communicate his message and help guide us. Then we have the fifth module, which is on the Aimma. This is now the challenges that the Aimma faced and the mechanisms that they used in order to try and safeguard the message that was communicated to us by the Prophet. Right? And then comes the sixth module. This is now the period of the Ghaiba, the philosophy of Ghaiba itself, the responsibilities that we all have during the period of the Ghaiba. So these three modules flow from one to the other. The process that was used to communicate the message, to help us live a good life on this earth and achieve salvation in the next one. The challenges, the mechanisms that the Aimma had to use in order to safeguard this message from distortion and innovations. And then the period of the Ghaiba, which is a very challenging period. We lived during this period. What's the philosophy of this period? And what are our responsibilities to ourselves and to the community at large? And then we end with the last module on the, and then comes the societal well-being. We looked at our own self-development at the individual level, our relationship, as Maulana said, our vertical relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we move out and come to the seventh module where we talk about our relationship with the rest of the community, our immediate family, our neighbors, our Muslim brothers, our non-Muslim brothers, the society at large. So that's at the societal level, at the horizontal relationship, as Maulana explained. And then finally, this is our return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the process of death, bereavement, barzakh, qiyamah, hell and heaven and hell. So those are the 8 modules that we have. I just wanted to explain a little more about that. Now within each module, we have identified themes that we believe fall into each of those 8 modules. And they are listed here. I'm not going to use the slide here because this is, I think all of you have the pull-out sheet, right? Yeah, I think we're going to use that. Because this can't be fitted all on one slide, so they've broken it down into a series of slides. But I think we'll be better off if we use this pull-out sheet. So we have the modules at the top, and then the themes that were identified that fall under each of these modules, they are right at the top there in this purple color, I assume. And one thing, so these are the themes. And then these themes were broken down into sub-themes, and they are listed vertically. So we have a matrix here of 8 modules and 6 age groups. Now, Ali will explain a little later why we have grouped these ages in bands 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. This is to cater for madrasas that have a large number of students as well as those who have a small number of students, because they may not be able to divide the students into 12 different groups. They may want to collect them into 6. That's why these are grouped 4 to 5, 6, 7. But he will explain it a little later. So we have this matrix of 8 by 6. The themes are across these 8 modules, and the sub-themes are listed under these 6 age groups. And we will not, as Brother Ali indicated, we're not going to focus on the sub-themes, but I'd like to just make a couple of points about them. Each one of these themes is discussed in each one of the age group to the extent possible. Sometimes the theme doesn't have enough depth that it needs to be discussed across all these age groups, but most of the time they are. So we take a theme, we break it down into sub-themes, and they are covered. The sub-themes are covered in each one of these age groups. And the second point is that if you look at these sub-themes, you'll see that we build upon it. So we start off, since the smallest age group is only 4 to 5 years, the simplest ideas about that particular sub-theme is discussed at the lower end of this thing, and we build on that so that the more complex issues related to those sub-themes come later on in the higher age groups. So those are the only 2 points I wanted to make, that the sub-themes run all the way down, and we build upon these sub-themes. Start off with very simple ideas, notions about this theme, and build on it, further build on it, and further build on it, so all the complex issues associated with it come later on. Okay? Okay, let's now look at the themes themselves. We won't talk about the sub-themes, as I think Brother Ali indicated. You can, at your own time, look at the sub-themes. If you have any ideas on whether this is a little too early to teach, or it should come a little later, or the later ones can be taught a little earlier, or some sub-themes are probably better suited to be discussed under Module X rather than Module Y. Those are the kinds of feedback that you can provide after you have had a chance to study this a little carefully. Because this is not the final version, this is the proposed version, and I'm sure there'll be modifications, A, based on the feedback that you provide, B, the people who will develop the lessons might find themselves that a certain sub-theme should be moved there instead of here. So both the developers of the lessons and you as teachers will provide feedback, and there may be some adjustments that may have to be made. Okay. So now we go back to the themes that are right across there. And another point that now I want to make about the themes is, if you look across, you will see that Aqaid, for instance, whereas we typically teach Aqaid, we start with monotheism, Tawheed, we move to Adala, justice of Allah, we go to Nubuwah, the prophethood, Imamah, the divine leadership, and then Qiyamah. And it's all taught under Aqaid in that sequential order. Here you will see that those 5 basic elements of Aqaid are spread across these modules. They are not taught all at once in one module, because they're integrated with some other things that also fall within that module. So if you look carefully, for instance, you'll find that Tawheed occurs under Module 1. Adala occurs under Module 2. Nubuwah occurs under Module 3 and 4. Imamah occurs in Module 5 and 6. And then Qiyamah occurs in Module 8. So all of them are covered. There will be an introduction to Usul al-Din, the roots of the religion, but the discussion of the different roots, the different elements of Usul al-Din will occur under different modules and be integrated with other things that are related to those particular elements. Similarly, if you look at Furu al-Din, they are not going to be taught, Salat, Som, etc., all the way to Tawalla Tabara. Again, they are spread across the modules, bearing in mind what's the point where it's best introduced. So if you look at Salat, for instance, it occurs under Module 1, our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so Salat occurs in Module 1. Then Som, because it's a prescription for taqwa, and Hajj, which is a journey to Allah, occurs under Module 3. Then we have Tawalla and Tabara occurs under the Aima. Amr bil Ma'ruf, Nahi and Munkar occurs under societal well-being. So you'll see, again, they're all being spread across all the modules. Okay? So those are general points I wanted to make. Now let's look at some of the specific themes that occur under each module. We start with Module 1 again. So here we are talking about the Creator and His creation. So obviously the emphasis has to be on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, and we talk about Allah as the creator of the universe. We talk about certain other things, about his attributes, about the proof of his existence. So everything that needs to be taught about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is covered here, spread across all the age groups. Not all of them are taught all in the first age group, all spread again vertically down across all the age groups. Then we bring the other, creation itself. There is the angels, the jinn, the creation of man. And then we start with the first creation of man. So here's when Tariq comes in now. Nabi Adam and Sayyidah Hawa and their children, and we explain the purpose of the creation, the need for religion, and then we bring the kalma, and then linked with this was, the tark awla that Prophet Adam did. So there is dua and istighfar, all being integrated. The fact that this happened during the period of Prophet Adam. And then we bring the basic mode of relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is salat, right? The primary mode of communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through salat. So then salat comes in here too. And again, we build up on wudu and salah all the way through, ending with the different types of salah, beginning with the daily prayers and then ending with other types of salah that are wajib as well as mustahab. So that's the first module with the themes that are covered there. If we look at the second module, then we are talking about the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His justice is that He did not just create us and leave us to our own devices. He sent us guidance. And the guidance came through His appointed leaders, the prophets, the anbiya and the aima. So this is the module that focuses on nubuwah and the previous prophets that we had and the previous scriptures we had and the miracles that the prophets had to show in order to convince people that they are the true messengers of God. The miracles were not there to demonstrate the authenticity of the message. The message, as Maulana explained earlier, has remained constant all the way through. So it wasn't really to demonstrate the authenticity of the message. It was to prove to the people that they are in fact the messengers of Allah through the supernatural, because they were making a supernatural claim, therefore they had to back it up with some supernatural acts to demonstrate that they are really the true messengers of Allah. Then if you look at module 3, now this is where the Sharia comes in, the divine law that Allah has laid down so that we can improve ourselves, purify ourselves in an attempt to move closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to achieve that higher and higher level of perfection. And here comes in, all the fiqh things about taharat and najasat, trying to understand yourself, the balance that you have to maintain between this world and the next world, what it is that you need to do in order to achieve that balance between the things that you're supposed to do here and the preparations that you have to make for the next world. And here also we introduce, as I mentioned earlier, things like Som and Hajj, Som being a prescription for taqwa, that self-development, and Hajj being this journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And associated themes of trial and tribulations and sabr. So all the akhlaqi things are also being brought in here. And the fourth module is the process that Rasulullah used in order to communicate the message, the challenges that he faced, the way he addressed these challenges is all covered under the fourth module there. And we also bring in all the other people who are responsible for helping the Prophet make his mission successful. The Prophet needed help from some other individuals to help ensure that his mission is successful. So the personalities that were involved in making sure that this happens will also be discussed there, including, for instance, Sayyidah Fatima, who kind of lived the message and was an example for all the women, you know, Abu Talib and Lady Khadija with their wealth and so on, all the different components that were essential to make sure that the message, the mission is successful. Then we come to the fifth module where, you know, we have the Aimma attempting to safeguard the message, the challenges that they face, the tyranny and the oppression that all occurred, and how they went about trying to make sure that this message survives till the end of time. And so we cover the concepts of Aimma, the Khilafat, the different ruling embassies, dynasties that we had, the Umayyads, the Abbasids. And then here also comes the whole concept of Azadari. And of course, we have Tawalla and Tabara, and the ziyarah. We talked earlier about Hajj, and here we talk about the ziyarah, the visitation of the shrines of all the Aimma. Then comes the period of the Ghaiba, the sixth module. This is now introducing us to the 12th Imam, the whole philosophy of Ghaiba, the Ghaibat al-Sughra and Ghaibat al-Kubra, our responsibilities during this period to ourselves and to the larger society. And then here's when we bring in these other elements of Usul al-Din, Khums and Zakat. We had talked about Jihad Akbar earlier in the self-purification. Now comes the talk of Jihad Asghar and some of the other challenges that we faced during this period, the doctrine of Salafism and all the other challenges that we have to face during this period. Then comes Module 7. So we have been focusing on, at the individual level, our relationship. Now we move on to that horizontal relationship. We talk about the societal well-being, and we start, after the individual, we move on to the family unit. So now we talk about the family, all the other things that are relevant at this point, marriage and divorce. Then we move out to talk about our relationships with the neighbors, and then move further out. This is a kind of a concentric circles. You move out, further out from the innermost circle to the outermost circle. Now we are talking about our relationship with the community at large, the community, and then with the society at large. And then brought in also here during this period is the influence of the media and all the misconceptions that are out there, and what's our responsibility in trying to correct some of these misconceptions that are out there. Of course, there is also then Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, which fit nicely into this particular module. You know, the commandments to promote good and prevent evil, all come under this module. And then there is the final module, which is a kind of self-explanatory. It has to do with death, preparing, how do we prepare for death, how we should be taking this measure to account for our own deeds ourselves before we have to account for these deeds before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some issues about suicide and euthanasia, how it's important to have your will ready, what are the recommended acts for the deceased, the process of bereavement, and then once that's all done, then we talk about Barzakh, what happens in Barzakh, and what happens on Qiyamah, where we have to account for our deeds, and the final resolution of hell and heaven. You will notice that there are 3 age bands there where we don't talk about the Creator, the return to the Creator, because these are some very heavy concepts that might be a little difficult for younger kids to understand and appreciate. So we do introduce them fairly early on to this idea of death and so on, but then we really reserve it for the last 3 modules. So those are the themes that will be covered, and each one, as I explained, will be broken down into sub-themes. And these sub-themes have been arranged to take 2 things into account: whether or not the students are capable at that age to comprehend the sub-themes, and then the second idea being that we want to build on these sub-themes so that by the time they get to that last age group, they have a full understanding of that particular theme. Okay?